Good morning, children. Hope you are safe at home. Today, let us do lesson 38, the magic kettle. Do you know what's a kettle? A kettle is this that we use to pour hot tea. Now, this story is about this kettle which was magical. Let's read about this story. Before that, you need to know the meaning of a word called tanuki. Let's see what is a tanuki. A tanuki is a small, furry, dog-like animal found in Japan. There are many imaginary stories about this playful little animal. It is believed in the stories that a tanuki can take the shape of anything or any animal. Here is a story about a tanuki and a peddler called Jimu. So children, this story is about a tanuki. A tanuki is a small dog-like animal with a lot of fur that is found in Japan. And this animal is believed to have magical power. So it can change into any shape it wants. It can become anything it wants. So let's read this story about this tanuki. Let's begin reading. Once in the country of Japan, there lived an old man. He lived in a beautiful house high up in the mountains. He was proud of his house with its white straw mats and pretty papered walls. In the warm weather, he slid back the walls to let the smell of the trees and flowers come in. So this story is about an old man who lived in Japan, high up the mountains in a beautiful house. His house was made up of straw mats, not of bricks. And it had pretty papered walls. Because the mats were there, it was not painted, but the walls were stuck with pretty papers. And when it was hot during summer, all he used to do was to move the paper walls so that he could get fresh air and also get the smell of the lovely trees and flowers on the mountain. One day he was standing looking at the mountain opposite when he heard a kind of rumbling noise in the room behind him. He turned around and saw a rusty old iron kettle in a corner. How did the kettle get here? The old man did not know, but he picked it up and looked it over carefully. So one day when this old man was busy looking at the mountain, suddenly he heard some noise in his house, like something had fallen down. When he turned back and looked, it was a very old kettle made up of iron which had collected a lot of rust. He didn't know how the kettle came over there, but still he picked up the kettle and started looking at it carefully. "That's a piece of luck," he said, smiling to himself. "My old kettle was getting worn out, and this looks like a good kettle." So when he carried that kettle, he thought, "How lucky I am." Why? Because his kettle that he was using was all spoiled and was of no use. So now he got this new kettle which he could use. He filled the new kettle with water and put it on the fire. So he put water in this kettle and put it on the gas fire so that the water could become hot. As soon as the water in the kettle began to get warm, a strange thing happened. The man thought he must be dreaming. The handle of the kettle slowly changed its shape and became a head. The spout grew into a tail. Out of the body of the kettle sprang 4 paws. In a few minutes, the man was watching not a kettle, but a tanuki. So, when he put this kettle on the fire and the water was heating up, suddenly he could see something happening to the kettle. The handle of the kettle was becoming like a head. The spout, which is the part in which you pour out the water, that was turning into a tail. And from the middle of the kettle, 4 paws like legs were coming out. And in no time, from the kettle jumped this animal which we call tanuki. The tanuki jumped off the fire and bounded about the room like a kitten. It ran up the pretty papered walls and even across the ceiling. The old man could not catch it. He called his neighbor for help. Somehow they caught the tanuki and shut it up in a wooden chest. Running after the tanuki had made them both very tired. They sat down on the mat to rest. So when this kettle turned into the tanuki jumped off the fire and he started jumping around the house just like a kitten. He started running up and climbing up the walls and even the ceiling. The old man was trying to catch it, but he couldn't because the tanuki was running very fast. Then the old man called his neighbor to help him catch it. Somehow, both of them got together and they caught hold of this animal, the tanuki. And as soon as they caught him, they threw him in a wooden box and closed the lid of the box. They were both very tired chasing after this animal. So they sat down for some time to rest. And the tanuki was trapped in the wooden box. What shall I do with this naughty animal? I don't want to keep it in the house, said the old man. So the old man got tired chasing after the tanuki. So he thought, what will I do with this animal? I don't need an animal with me. Why don't you sell it off to Jimmu the peddler? The neighbor suggested. So his friend, the neighbor, told him, if you don't want this animal, why don't you give it off to this man called Jimmu, who's a peddler, who buys and exchanges things? That's a good idea, said the old man. So he was happy to give the tanuki off to Jimmu. So they sent for Jimmu. They called Jimmu home. When he came, the old man went to the chest and lifted the lid very, very carefully. But there was no tanuki inside. Only the old rusty kettle the old man had found. He did not now want to keep the kettle. he gave it away to Jimmu without taking any money for it. So children, when Jimmu the peddler came home and the old man slowly opened the lid of the wooden box, the tanuki was not there anymore. It had converted back into the old kettle that it was. So very quickly, the old man gave the kettle to Jimmu. He didn't want to keep it, and he did not ask Jimmu for any money. He told him, please take this for you. Jimmu put the kettle in his cloth bag and started off home. He felt that his bag was getting heavier and heavier on the way, but he did not put it down. On reaching home, Jimmu put the bag away carefully in a corner. So Jimmu took the kettle from the old man and he put it in his bag. And he started walking towards his house carrying the bag. But as he was walking, he felt the bag was getting heavier and heavier. Anyway, he did not leave the bag. He took the bag home and kept it in a corner and sat down. At night, when Jimmu was fast asleep, he heard a sudden noise and woke up. He could not see anything, but he thought he heard some noises in the corner. When he lit the lamp, he saw that the kettle had turned into a tanuki once again. It was running around, chasing its own tail. It ran here and there and jumped and turned somersaults. Jimmu sat watching the tanuki for a long time. Then he fell asleep. So, when Jimmu was sleeping in the night, suddenly he could hear some noises. He woke up, but because it was dark, he could not see anything. So then he lit his lamp. And when there was light, he could see that the kettle had changed into the tanuki again. And this tanuki, as usual, was having fun running around the house. It was chasing its own tail. It was jumping here and there and rolling over. But Jimmu did not get scared, neither did he try to catch the animal and cover it. He let the animal play, and he, after some time, went off to sleep. When he got up in the morning, he saw that the tanuki had not run away. The old kettle was still lying in the corner. He picked it up lovingly. So when Jimmu got up in the morning, he saw that the tanuki had not gone away. The old kettle that it was still there lying in the corner. So he carried the kettle in his hands. And what did he do? Do you wish to stay with me, tanuki? He asked. So he started talking to the kettle because he knew the kettle was turned into the tanuki. So he asked the kettle, Tanuki, do you want to stay with me in my house? To his surprise, the tanuki answered in her human voice. So the tanuki could speak from the kettle. What did the tanuki say? I'll stay with you and make you very rich. You can show me around. People will give a lot of money to see a kettle turn into a tanuki and dance. So the tanuki was ready to stay with Jimmu. He told Jimmu, if you allow me to stay with you, I can make you very rich. Many people will pay money to see me do this magic and to see me dance. so you can make more money out of me. So that's what they did. Jimu set up a booth with a platform. Booth with a platform is like a small tent with a table, just like you see when you watch puppet shows. He put the kettle on the platform. At his command, the kettle turned into a tanuki. At Jimu's commands, the little furry animal would then walk, run, jump, leap, turn somersaults, or dance. People love to see the kettle change into a playful little animal that could do all this. They paid Jimu well to see the show. Big crowds of people came to watch the show, and the dear little Tanuki never disappointed them. Merrily it danced many dances: the shadow dance, the fan dance, the umbrella dance. It never got tired of dancing. So children, you see, Jimu listened to the Tanuki. He started doing shows with the Tanuki. And many people used to come to watch these shows, and they used to give Jimu a lot of money. And whatever Jimu used to do, they used to enjoy. They used to watch how the Tanuki would jump out of the kettle. Then whatever orders Jimu gave the Tanuki, he would do it. He loved dancing, so he would do all kinds of dances. And people really enjoyed watching their show. So Jimu started collecting lots of money and becoming rich. Why? Because of Tanuki. Soon Jimu had collected lots and lots of money. He had become a very rich man. He said to the Tanuki, "Dear Tanuki, you have made me very rich. We can both live in comfort now. We can stop the shows if you like." So for a long time, Jimu did lots of shows with Tanuki and collected lots of money. He became a very rich man. After he became rich, he asked the Tanuki, "If you want, we can stop doing shows now. I have made a lot of money. So now we can stay together peacefully." So they decided to stop the shows. But Jimu did not forget the old man who had given him the magic kettle. He gave some of the money to the old man. All of them lived long and happy lives. Jimu and the old man are no more, but you may still come across the magic kettle lying in a corner somewhere in Japan. So, Tanuki and Jimu both decided to stop doing their shows. But Jimu was so kind and thoughtful that he gave some of his money to the old man who had given him the kettle. And he and Tanuki lived happily ever after. There are still stories about this kettle and the Tanuki. But Jimu and the old man are no longer alive. But even today in Japan, the Tanuki is well known. So this was the story about the magic kettle. Hope you enjoyed it. Now let's see the meanings of some of the words from this lesson. Rusty means very old or covered with rust. What is the meaning of rust? The reddish layer that forms on old iron articles. So sometimes if you take a screw or a nail which is very old, you will see it is not silver but dark brown or reddish. The thing on the nail is called as rust. Bounded about means jumped here and there. Peddler is a person who sells things from door to door. Booth is a small tent or a building in a market. And merrily means in a happy, cheerful way. So children, this was all in today's lesson. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you and have a nice day.